Like that stone wall at the back of the little pasture. In this video we'll take a look at the material I used to make that wall, how I cut the stone face into it, and how I colored it. So follow along. Hi fellow modelers, it's Bruce here, and thank you for tuning in to the Jersey Highlands Bruce YouTube channel. Now, when it comes to building a stone wall, a modeler has a lot of choices. You can actually build them out of stone, you can cast some plaster and carve it. There certainly are laser cut sheets of stone face. You know, I have made them by using a wood burning tool and burning the cut blocks, let's say, for that kind of stone into the wood. And then coloring it like stone. I did a video on that, using them for foundations. So all of those ideas go through your mind. What are you going to build a stone wall out of? A few videos ago, I think it was when I was talking about the slate pit, I mentioned balsa foam. And this is a sheet of balsa foam, and it's very easy to etch into balsa foam. It doesn't take a heavy touch. It takes quite a light touch. And I don't know if you can see, but up in the upper right-hand corner, I've started to etch in some, what I am hoping will represent a stack of slate. This is by the slate pit. They have a bunch of junk slate. So they could easily get blocks that were fairly parallel top and bottom. They're not going to be round stones, various thicknesses, and they could stack them to form a wall at the back of their pasture. These are people that are working for the company. They don't have a lot of money. So this is what I've started, and I'll kind of just show you how I did that and come back in a few seconds. Okay, first let me show you my fancy etching tool. What I have here is a hardwood toothpick, one of the fancier kind that only has a point on one side, and I don't know if you can see. Let's hold it up next to something, maybe with a background. The top is, it's been etched with a couple lines to make it a little fancy. It's like a cocktail toothpick, but good hardwood. And I took the point, and I took a emery board, and I just rounded the point off a little bit so it wasn't so sharp. And this became my etching tool. And it takes a very light pressure. The first thing I did was scribe parallel vertical lines, because again, as I said, it's supposed to be slate. And the way I did that was I lined up some weights so that I could press this straight against them and keep it steady. And then I started by just taking a strip of wood, etching right along the side of it, and one of another width, and did the same thing until I got all the way out to a scale 4 feet. So that gave me mostly parallel lines. I messed up a little bit, but I don't need to use this whole width anyway. I only need about 4.5 real inches of stone wall. So that's how I got the parallel lines etched in. And then I'll just show you how I etch the blocks. And again, I'm probably making them a lot more regular than if you were picking random pieces of slate off of an old slate pile. But you just fit the width that you want and very carefully etch a cut between the two parallel lines. And you're trying to stack them so that they don't have a joint above a joint. You might think this is tedious, but in reality, it doesn't take very long to get 4 inches of slates etched into the balsa foam. I am barely pressing down here. You don't want to go back to the top and start. Halfway through that slate, come back out, stagger them, And then every so often, because there's a little bit of fuzz that accumulates, I just come through with a somewhat stiff brush, but I'm hardly pressing down. I'm just getting the junk out of the etches and the cuts. Do some at 45-degree angle. And let's see, can you see how that's looking? Yeah, I think you can. So you can see it. It's very, very simple. Now this is thicker than I want it to be. I can't afford to take up on my narrow shelf a ½ inch for this stone wall. So when I get to my 4½ inches, I'll cut that strip right off the edge and then set it up on its end and slice this at least in half, and just use the front half. And then I will etch the slate cuts. I'll bring them up onto the top and probably make it look like 2 rows of them. And same thing on both ends, kind of bring the stones around and then just paint them slate color. So, I'll come back and I'll show you, kind of the final results once it gets painted. And balsa foam. It's a nice product to work with if you want to be able to etch shapes into it. So stone walls and foundations and things like that. And before the end of this video, I'll give you a source of where you can buy it, but you can Google it. And I'm not going to use it for everything, but this is a good application for it. Okay, talk to you again soon. Okay, a little while later, I finished carving my stack slate wall here, scale 4 feet tall. And this is what I was talking about, where you can continue the etching of the slates or the rocks or whatever you're carving, through the top and on the ends of the wall as well. And now it's just time to paint it. I did slice it a lot thinner, so here's the thickness of the balsa foam, and I cut it to about half of that thickness so it doesn't take up too much room. And I'll paint it, and then it's ready to install at the back of the pasture, and then I'll have a fence coming off of this side. The little barn actually adjoins the wall, and the fence will come on the other side of the barn. So it's the barn is over here, and then the fence will come down along the barn and then across the front of the pasture too. So pretty much the way I envisioned it, but it was actually very easy to do. And then if you wanted to experiment with it, you certainly could. I'll show you where I got mine, and as I said, all you have to do is probably Google balsa foam and you can find it. But I got mine from Service Reproduction Company out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and there's their contact information. And like I said, it's available many places. So balsa foam, give it a try. I'll come back one last time when I have the wall painted. So talk to you then. Alrighty, I am in the painting mode on my balsa foam wall. So far what I've done is I've put 2 washes on the wall, couple drops of paint in 50 times that much water. One was first a black wash, just to get down into the space between the crevices, what would be mortar lines, but this is just a dry stacked wall, so it's to form shadows. So first with a black and then with a brown. The colors I used were both in the Microlux paint line. The one was Microlux Engine Black, which is water-based paint. So a couple drops of that in like a medicine glass like this, and then filled up to about a ½ inch of water. So very, very watery. And then I just put it in with a soft brush and let it go down into the crevices. And then I went over it with the same kind of wash with Microlux Roof Brown. So that's where it stands now, and now those are both dry. And now I'm going to paint the faces of the slates using a cosmetic sponge. And that's a technique I did a YouTube video on, maybe three years ago, maybe, 4 perhaps. And it was using cosmetic sponges to paint brick walls. And so the technique is the same as what I did there. So these you can buy in Sally's and probably most pharmacies. I'm going to start with, I have two colors of gray here. I have Dove Gray, a folk art paint, and that's a lighter gray. And then I have Deco Art Americana brand Slate Gray, which is a darker gray. So I am going to start by just dipping the end of the sponge in to the lighter paint, scraping it off, and then getting rid of most of it on the napkin there. And then you go straight down onto the face. You don't want to go into the crevices. And I'm going to go over the whole thing with the light. And then I am going to probably come back and dab with the darker, with the slate gray, and try to get almost a two-tone look to the slates that are there. Doesn't really bother me if some of that brown wash shines through, because it would just give the impression of dirt sifting down over the years, through the slates, and that's not a bad thing. Nothing is worse, I think, than just a solid, uniform color, like you painted it. I don't want to do that. Okay. I think you're seeing how this is starting to come together. Now I'm going to go to the darker gray. Again, getting most of it off, and just dabbing here, there, and everywhere. Now I think I'm going to let this dry and then see how I like it, because you're not going to get the paint off. I guess you could paint the whole thing brown again and start, but you can always add another layer. And so I'm going to let that dry now, and I think, well, should I maybe just really get this off and go over it one more time. And now I'm going to leave it alone. Okay, this has been a crazy day. First it was a little bit of sun this morning, then we had about 3 hours of snow squalls, and now the sun is out again. So I don't know if that's affecting your ability to see this, but let me zero in on it a little bit and see if you can get a better look at it. So yeah, I think right now I'm going to leave it, and then I'll go to the most important art critic that lives in the house, and that's my dear wife, and see what she thinks. So I might come back one more time, but if I don't, as always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. Videos are going to be coming out pretty regularly now, maybe more than once a week, because I have a lot of these little projects that all have to be done simultaneously to complete that scene on my quarry branch there. And so yeah, I might see you back in this video and I might not. So take care.